Well, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs, and I'm doubly excited today. I feel like the Doublemint twins, because this is one of our weekly moments, the Marc Z moments with the fabulous Marc Z from Marc Z Legal Staffing. But we're going to be joined, helping me as my co-host in this quick segment, by the one and only Sheriff Sharkey from the Higher Authority. Welcome, Marc Z, and welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be here.
So,
Jeff, good to be with you all.
Thank you. Well, Sheriff Sharkey, we better watch over Marc Z. Let's see what he's going to talk about today. Marc, what's the topic du jour?
Well, Jeff, I thought we would continue with the theme of coming back. And one of the big themes as we come back has to do with diversity and inclusion. What's that going to look like? What's happened? We've always wanted to have a diverse environment and work environment in particular. And we've always wanted to include people. But this past year, as we now come back, one of the things that firms and companies are looking at and are hiring for are a more diverse workforce.
Well, that's interesting too. And I support that. And I think it's really about truly understanding what it means to look for real talent, not a predisposition for what talent is. I know just recently we have our first Native American cabinet member that was just in the history of the country. And I think it was kind of amazing for me to think that this was a first time event in the country, because you would have thought there would have been someone who could have been picked before who had qualifications. So again, I think a lot of people are very narrow in their definition of success. And you need to open your mind up to what that means, maybe change the way you're even recruiting and posting for positions, correct?
Correct. I mean, first of all, it's important to understand what is diversity. And diversity is made up of characters and traits that make people unique. So that's what diversity is. So it could be anything from not only race, could be religion, could be ethnicity, nationality, even people's view on politics, but that should be staying out of the workplace anyway. But characteristics that make people unique to society and the workplace. And then inclusion is making people feel comfortable in society, or in this case, when hiring into the workplace. So, and feel welcome. So what's going to happen is, by having diversity and inclusion, the idea and the hope is that you're going to have people feeling better physically, emotionally, and being very successful. And it's going to lead to companies' success, because you have a diverse environment and people feeling good about being in that environment. So it's
bringing more skills. It brings more skills to the table versus a narrow one. And I'm not trying to exclude it. And it's still as important as ever to follow the rules of Sheriff Sharkey. And that is, you need to pre-screen people too, just making sure that people are what they say they are.
Yeah, Marc, and so overdue really by that rule. And that's why I really like my role and all the background checks I do, because race, creed, color, weight, anything of diversity is all ruled out for me. Every applicant to me is a piece of paper and a background check. So to me, it brings it all together. And I'm looking for the honesty and integrity and the people who falsify, no matter what race, creed, or religion they are. So always my clients definitely err on the side of not infringing and not excluding any person they want for the position. I'm looking for the honesty and integrity and people that falsify who they claim to be, what they have been, what they have on their resume or application. And to me, it makes it a very level playing field. And I like that. I feel very inclusive. And to me, people who lie come in all shapes and forms. And I'm looking for that. I'm the guy in the room that's always the not fun guy. Everybody talks at these meetings and including, their what they want for employees. And I'm the one just wagging my finger like, let's just make sure people are honest. That's
well, Phil, you're right. You are the not fun guy, but and Marc is the fun guy, that I know for sure. But you're right, and so common for people, for me, to define success on what I would call a more traditional business male model, or we can call it a white male model. And I think, starting at the top what is success, what, you know, and how do we define it? How do we interview without, you know, visors on that block us? You know, I think it's really important. So I do think it does start at the top. You know, you both deal with people in HR and human resources and leadership, and so do I in all those areas. And, you know, there is a predisposition to think what success is, and it isn't always what people think it is.
Right. So Jeff, what our clients are doing and what we recommend to clients as we're doing diversity searches, and Phil, I'm sure you're seeing that on the back end, are first of all, good training of the people, the hiring people, so they can snuff biases out and really get involved into the weeds in terms of hiring. So for example, when you're reaching a candidate and you're doing a background check. So for example, years ago, we had a candidate for us that was a diverse candidate, and they did a background check. And one of the background checks came up with the person had all this financial debt and all these issues relating to that. And the company is concerned because we're a commission business, and what's caused this, that they can't manage their finances and everything. And it ended up, we dug deeper, we got an explanation. We didn't just ding the person because that raised red flags, but we found out the person was in a major automobile accident, and they financially had issues spending it. So I think whereas, like, for example, with interviewing training and getting the attitudes of employees for employee surveys, and then once you're doing the hiring process and you enlist somebody like a Phil to do a background check, it's a good tool in making decisions that will produce the right candidates for the right reasons.
And Mark, I find that all the time, and you make a great point. I talked to Jeff about this, where the background check to me is information, and it doesn't always have to be the 30% that I see as fraudulent or negative. Sometimes it's information that explains a gap for the potential employee, or they may have two applicants, and it doesn't always end in a non-hire situation. They can, as you mentioned, go back to the applicant and find out. We find out in those financial cases that there was an unexplained divorce, or they owned a business like my own that went belly up all of a sudden, and it was an unexplained situation where, again, it's information which gives you the power to make the best decision available.
You know, everybody has stereotypes, and it limits. I experienced many over my career, and maybe the easiest one to talk about here without getting into trouble was when I first moved here to Boston, and I couldn't get second interviews because I didn't go to university in the United States. And I thought it was so ridiculous. People would say to me, "What school did you go to in Boston?" And I'd say, "I didn't go to school in Boston." And that was sort of like the end of the interview, you know? And the typical question for a Canadian traditionally was, "Oh, so you went to McGill?" And I'm like, "No, there's more than one school in Canada." So I agree with both of you, and we all have to make changes. But Marc Z, I really appreciate having you on always for the Marc Z moment. If someone's looking for you, how would they find you?
Well, first of all, Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C, and the letter Z will come right up, or marczlegal.com, marczlegal.com, or 617-338-1300.
And Marc Z knows. I was looking up Z's yesterday. And Phil Sharkey, who likes to support people like Marc Z, how do people find you?
Same way, Jeff, you can Google us, or we come up at hireauth.com, hireauth.com, or call us right here in Massachusetts at 508-230-5901.
And you can find me, Jeffrey Davis, at Mage. Just look up Mage. That's my management consulting firm. And we're going to take a break. And guess what? We're going to see both these fellows next week on their separate radio reports on Radio Entrepreneurs. How do you like that?
Excellent.
It's a twofer. And Marc, if you wanted to zoom up again